5 years ago, my sister, 25 at the time, decided she wanted to open a preschool. My dad was completely on board, helped her pick out a piece of land, bought the land, got her set up with a modular building company, paid for the building, donated supplies, and paid for everything the first year. Every year, his company donates thousands of dollars to her school. They provide backpacks, lunchboxes, and water bottles to each of her students yearly, donate food on special occasions, fund graduation every year, and provide teacher gifts for Christmas and the end of the year. She talked about wanting to expand, and his company donated a whole building and a new playground. I, a 27-year-old female, want to open a salon. I asked my dad to help me open it like he did with my sister's school. He recommended I spend a few more years working, and he'll consider it. However, I've worked in salons for 2 years, but it's hard to find a good fit. I have ADHD, and my bosses are not accommodating. I reminded him that he helped my sister when she was 2 years younger than me, but he said it's different because she started babysitting at 11, working at a swim school at 13, working with preschoolers at summer camps at 15, and getting a job as a preschool teacher fresh out of high school. He also said she understood how the business would work well and had great ideas for location and specialization to attract parents. I told him I had good ideas, but he was just not willing to listen and spent half of what he did on my sister's business. He said the only way he'll reconsider is if I get at least an associate's degree in business, get a job in my field, and keep it for 3 years, and save at least half of the startup cost. All of this has to happen within 4 years. We got into an argument, and I called him an idiot for supporting my sister and spending tens and hundreds of thousands on her business, but either refusing or making me jump through hoops for me to get half of what she got. He says I'm being ungrateful and unrealistic and can't expect something just because my sister has it. Am I the idiot? Edit. She graduated high school with her associates in ECE and started as an associate teacher but not the lead. By the time she was 22, she left for another school to be a lead. She and my dad constantly brag about it. You are the idiot. Get a job in my field and keep it for 3+ years. I noticed that you failed to volunteer any CV that would establish your qualifications for running a business like this. Also, it is stupid to call a potential investor an idiot. I don't think you understand how business works. Your father's right. The OP mentioned that prior salon bosses and her haven't gotten along due to their not accommodating her ADHD. As someone who has severe ADHD, I absolutely hate when people use it as an excuse for poor behavior or for problems that seem more like a personality or entitlement thing. ADHD is not a reason for not being able to hold a job. Some accommodations can be made, but they have to be reasonable. And if you can't keep a job in a salon as a stylist, you won't be able to successfully run one. Your father gave your sister the money because he had years of evidence that she had the experience, education, and staying power to be successful with the investment. He's simply asking you for similar evidence to reassure him that you have the skills and knowledge to succeed in your chosen endeavor. He's treating you both pretty equally, and honestly, any inequality is in your favor because she provided more than 7 years of evidence, while he's only asking you for just 3. That you immediately threw a fit and called him names just proves to him and everyone else that you aren't even close to mature enough to open and run a business. Get the job, do the associates, prove that you can last in the field for 3 to 5 years, and then go back. Right now, you're not ready. My ex, Marcia, has always been a bit of a free spirit and hippie. We divorced because our life vision changed from when we were initially married. She then began dating Paul, and they've been together for 5 years. Our kids are now a young teen and a tween. I have never had a problem with Paul. He's a lot like Marcia and makes her happy. Plus, the kids seem to like him. Marcia and I used to split custody 50-50. Then a year ago, out of nowhere, Marcia told me that she and Paul wanted to travel the country in a renovated van. I guess Paul is a massive fan of the van life culture on social media. She wanted me to give permission for her to bring the kids and let them be homeschooled for a year. I could fly out to see the kids a few times, or she'd fly them back. We had the homeschool debate when our oldest was younger, and I'd always been against it. Neither of us was equipped to educate the kids in that manner. I still don't feel we are. Not to mention, by this point, the kids loved their school. And more importantly, I didn't want to not see them for months at a time. I refused to sign off on this. The kids didn't want to go either. Because our custody agreement says we both must approve trips out of state for the kids, the judge declined her request. Marcia decided to go anyway. She willingly gave me sole custody. The plan was to fly the kids out to wherever they were a few times a year. The kids went a total of 2 times around the holidays, but they were miserable. Marcia said they shouldn't come again. I listened and validated my kids' feelings, but never trash-talked their mother. She and Paul returned in January. The kids also heavily resent Marcia for leaving. I have them in therapy, but they don't want to attend therapy with her. Their therapist backs this up and says as long as they continue their personal sessions, that's fine. Marcia tried to take me to court for our old agreement, but the judge said because she has no job, no stable housing, they lived out of the van, and barely saw her kids for a year, she could only have partial custody. The judge also says they're old enough to decide whether to go. Most of the time they don't. Marcia called me in tears when they didn't see her for Mother's Day. She said none of this would have happened if I had just signed off on them going. She says we could have talked them into it. I said she made her choice. She decided that living in a van and seeing the country was more interesting than seeing her kids for a year. I pointed out that she could have chosen to do it for the summer, and the kids may have agreed then. Even if they didn't, they probably wouldn't resent her. But no, she left for an entire year and broke their hearts. This made her cry more. I'm very close with my ex-mother-in-law, and she says I should have let the kids go, or tried to convince them to go at the very least. She also said I was needlessly cruel to Marcia on Mother's Day. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. There's nothing you said that I disagree with. People change and mature over time, and you made difficult but proper choices as their father. Good on you. The kids are old enough to make an informed decision. Ripping them away from their friends and school when they don't want to go would make them resent you as much as they do her. It's wild that he's being gaslit for rational decisions based on what's best for his children. Clearly, they're the priority in his life. When you say van, do you mean like the stuff on TikTok where they're living in a real van? No toilet, shower, or a small RV-style van? I don't understand where those kids would even be sleeping in the former. It's most likely what you see on TikTok. Some of those Sprinter-type vans do have a toilet and a shower, but they take up space, or there's little to no privacy. That kind of nomadic lifestyle is great, I think, for a single person or a couple with no children. Marcia's fantasy about traveling the country while living in a van was just that, her fantasy. You did the right thing by prioritizing your children. For her, it was just a year. But for your kids, it was a defining moment in their relationship with their mother that they will carry forever. My husband and I have been married for 6 years, and we have 2 kids together. He also has 2 kids with his ex-wife. My stepkids were both under 2 when their parents divorced. I met my husband roughly 2 years after his divorce, and we got married after being together for 2 years. Currently, my stepkids are male and female tweens, and my boys are a preschooler and a toddler. So here's the deal. My stepkids do not acknowledge my children as siblings, not half siblings or just siblings. Now, I know relationships can't be forced, and there are people who view step or half siblings as lesser siblings. But it did come as a big surprise to me when they denied my kids as siblings and only acknowledged each other. They don't view me as a parent, but that's okay, because generally they're respectful and well-behaved. It was hard to hear the kids say they didn't have more siblings or outright deny the boys. I know age gaps can play a role too, but I know there are siblings with age gaps who still manage to be close and acknowledge each other while young. What I did not know until a few weeks ago is my husband's ex-wife has a very negative view of stepfamily and half siblings, and has been vocal about this since my husband met her. And she raised my stepkids hearing about how half isn't an actual sibling, or a stepfamily isn't a real family. She's rejected her own step-siblings and refuses a relationship with them because they don't share the same dad. She sees her stepdad, who came into her life when she was 5, as the body her mom sleeps with, and nothing more. She doesn't believe in stepfamilies or second marriages, no matter what the circumstances. She's remained single since the divorce because of this, apparently. My husband never gave me this info, though. He just tried to secretly counter it with my stepkids. I only found out because my stepdaughter had a dance recital we all attended, and we ended up sitting next to my stepkid's mom. At some point, someone said something. I'm not sure if it was my stepson or my husband, but she told my husband and stepson that my boys aren't their siblings, so what's the big deal? I was shocked, and she noticed. She told me I wasn't part of this either. I was nothing to her kids. She told me my husband always knew where she stood on that, and she wouldn't apologize for it. After the recital, he admitted to me that he knew about it and suspected there was a very good chance the kids would feel the same as her because of how long she had shared these views with them. I told him that it was very unfair to me and our 2 boys not to share this info before we got married. I told him that's the kind of information that should be shared. I brought up how I know personally what rejection can feel like. He said it wasn't something he could change, so he didn't see why I was blaming him. And I told him because that's the kind of thing you mention to someone that you want to add to your family. He told me I was being unreasonable. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. She really set you up to fail to get those kids to bond, and your husband hid that influence from you. I'm sorry you have to deal with this, and I hope it doesn't breed resentment in your younger boys that their older siblings don't acknowledge them. I'm not making excuses for the ex's behavior. Still, I definitely wonder what happened when her stepfather joined their family that made her have such an extreme aversion to step-parents and step-siblings, etc. Step-families can go very wrong if the parents don't handle the adjustment correctly, or if the stepchild is mistreated and their birth parent doesn't intervene. OP, imagine if you have a time machine and you go back 4 years and he tells you this a week or 2 before the wedding. What are you doing with that information? Are you still marrying him and starting a family? Does his ex-wife's wildly irrational stance on pure siblings impact your wedding plans in any way? Or at what point in your honeymoon or during your pregnancy would you prefer information about your new husband's ex-wife's stance on you? With that said, not the idiot. I feel for the husband because I've been caught in this position before. Sometimes a thing doesn't matter until it's too late. My dad spends a lot of time on social media, and recently, he's been talking about how frequent paternity fraud has become and this kind of BS. A while ago, he told me, a female teen, that he wanted a paternity test because he thought that I might not be his child. He asked me to keep this between us and not tell my mom anything if he was wrong. To be clear, between all of my siblings, I'm the only one who doesn't look like him, which is why he only wanted to test me. I told him that he was a moron because my mom is just not the kind of person who cheats. She's devoted her life to her family. I don't even remember the last time she went somewhere without us, so I don't see how she could cheat unless she's sneaking out at night when everyone's asleep. Still, my dad insisted and said that if I didn't do this, he wouldn't support me when I went to college. I said, fine, I'll take the test, but it's none of his business whether or not I tell my mom. The test result came 2 days ago, and to our surprise, I am his child. He told me he was glad we did this so that he could be sure and not have doubts anymore. I told him to get lost. Of course, I went and told my mom about the test, and now she wants a divorce. She basically kicked my dad out. I'm unsure and don't care enough to know where he's staying. Today he called me and said I'm an idiot for ruining their marriage and asked whether I'm happy with what I've done and how I'm the reason my little siblings are going to be raised in a broken home. I told him I didn't really care anymore and hung up. Not the idiot. Your father really has no shame. Confronting your own minor daughter about a paternity test destroyed any loving, trusting relationship a child should have with a parent. But the implied disbelief about your mother's suspected infidelity takes the cake. Of course she kicked him out. He doesn't deserve to stay in a loving relationship when he has such severe doubts about your mother's character. But then to call you an idiot and the reason your siblings will be without that crappy dad? He's the epitome of idiocy. And not even because he had doubts or she was being shady, because social media's brainworms got the best of him. Wonder what would happen if he read books. My God, of all the ludicrous reasons to implode your family, this is pretty close to the top. Then to add the cherry to the dumpster fire he created, out of nowhere, he has the gall to accuse OP of destroying their marriage and making the siblings grow up in a broken home. No, sir. Your absolute pants-on-head stupidity did that all by itself. My uncle did this. His genes were strong, and all 6 of his other kids were carbon copies of him. Blonde hair, blue eyes, round faces. His youngest daughter came out with dark brown curly hair, brown eyes, and a narrow chin. She looked just like her mother, but to him, that was proof she cheated on him. One paternity test later, he had a daughter who didn't look like him and a brand new ex-wife. And he was shocked when she took the kids and moved out. The ironic part is that now that she's grown, she looks a lot like him. Her hair lightened a lot, though not as light as his, and her face rounded out. Honey, your father was already on a collision course with ending the marriage. He was just hoping to accuse your mom of cheating to make a cleaner break. Most likely, this was a case of every accusation is an admission. This week, I had a minor examination at the hospital that required me to not eat for 24 hours before the test. My appointment was also delayed by 4 hours, so by the time it was done and by the time I got home, it was over 32 to 34 hours since I had eaten anything. Because of this, I was very hungry and tired, so I decided to order some food. I asked my girlfriend if she wanted anything, but she said no. My girlfriend said she'd rather cook than order out, but I said I'd prefer a takeaway so we can just have separate meals. She said she'd rather we both cook, but I again refused and told her I was ordering food. I ordered the food and she decided not to cook and just said she didn't want anything. Once the food came, I was sitting eating when she came over and asked if she could have some. I asked if she was serious. I pointed out that I'd asked her multiple times if she wanted anything, and she waited for me to sit and enjoy my food to try and take it. I mentioned that I'd ordered exactly what I had because of how hungry I was, but she just said she was hungry too, since she hadn't eaten. I mentioned that she hadn't eaten because I didn't want to cook for her, and that doesn't mean she should come and take my food instead. I said if she wants something to eat, she can either order herself something or cook it, but I'm not sharing what I ordered. She said I was being too selfish and that I had enough to share, so I should be fine sharing with her. She said she's not asking for much, and I'm being unfair. Am I the idiot for refusing to share the food I ordered? You are not the idiot. Your girlfriend, on the other hand, is a lazy idiot. You gave her several opportunities to decide between ordering food like you were or cooking something for herself. She chose the latter and then changed her mind, expecting you to make up for her indecision and unwillingness, i.e., laziness, to cook as she had originally decided. When you add to this that she knew you were recovering from a procedure in which you had not been able to eat beforehand and were very hungry, that makes her look even worse. The icing on the cake is when she accuses you of being the selfish one. That is really a poor attempt at gaslighting. If this is just one example of selfish, entitled behavior on her part, and there are many more and worse ones, please reevaluate this relationship. Obligatory Joey doesn't share food comment. Jesus, dude, you hadn't eaten for nearly 1.5 days, and she told you multiple times that she didn't want anything before you ordered. I'd be famished, temperamental, and hangry. Don't touch my food. And why didn't she cook before you came home? She probably knew you didn't eat for more than a day, so you'd be very hungry.